Hopping on here to do a little bit of an after-hours segment to talk about a rally that Trump just wrapped up at his Doral club in Florida. And he has been missing from the campaign trail, as we talked about, for days and days. I think it's up to 11 days, just not seen in the public eye, which is a strange thing, both because you're running a presidential campaign and also because in this specific presidential campaign, you're levying an attack against Biden that makes it, I think, important if you're trying to show some sort of contrast or something for you to be out front saying, I can do it. But disastrous speech, as we're about to get into. Before we get to what I would describe as more important things to play, I do want to show a couple confused moments, and then also up front here, sort of more on a lighthearted note, him describing himself as drenched in sweat as his makeup just melts off of his face. Here we go.
You know, it's only 103 degrees out here. So, you know, they built all these, they call them, sir, we have many water spots. I said, what about one for me? Do I have one? I don't have one, Marco. They gave water spots. Everybody has, they call it a water spot. Where water comes out, you get. They don't have anything for me. I'm being drenched up here.
Yeah, one of the reasons he gets really scared whenever it rains is because of, I think reportedly his hair was one of the big things. But also you can imagine in this moment when the sweat starts pouring, that means the makeup's going to be running off, melting away. And you may get a glimpse of this, as you can see on screen, where on his collar sometimes you'll get a glimpse of just how thick that makeup is. And this as well, sort of the contrast between his actual skin and his the lathered on skin. And then this is just raw, how it would look in real. And I'm not making any critiques, sheesh, I'm just saying. Interesting. So there's the more lighthearted thing. Then, interestingly, he forgot that Don Jr.'s not married.
So hard, so smart, has a great wife, as does Don. Oh, you like Laura, right?
So he refers to Laura Trump, Eric Trump's wife, and then says, like Don. Eric Trump has a great wife, like Don has a great wife. You'll remember, I'm not going to play the compilation, don't worry if you've seen it too many times, but Donald Trump Jr. pretty recently showed that, first of all, he's not married, so he has a fiance, but you understand how you can get those confused. Sort of. I mean, a marriage, a wedding is a very notable thing. You'd think you'd remember if that happened or not, but okay. He meant that, or just a great partner. But also, we've seen Donald Trump Jr.'s views about his own fiance in that compilation I've shown a few times, where Donald Trump Jr. in one podcast, I think like 6 times, talked about how much he loved the idea of Kimberly Guilfoyle living away from him and how much she bothers him. So I don't know the standing of that, but then you have him saying this.
Yes, oh yes, and quickly, says President Trump. Yes, oh yes.
I don't think he was supposed to read that off the teleprompter.
Yes, oh yes, and quickly, says President Trump. Yes, oh yes.
Yes, oh yes, quickly, says President Trump. And listen, they'll attack Biden when he does that. I don't see them criticizing Trump for it. Because I'm consistent, I can say I don't really care in both cases, because I've read off a teleprompter before, and sometimes instructions, as you're going quickly, do get mixed up with the words that you're supposed to be saying. But again, a little inconsistency there on MAGA's part, because they'll go really hard against Biden for that very phenomenon. Then Trump, for some reason, admits that he was not qualified to be president in the first place. My words, not his.
This I didn't even know what the hell NATO was too much before, but it didn't take me long to figure it out, like about 2 minutes. And the first thing I figured out was they weren't paying. We were paying almost fully for NATO.
Yeah, maybe admitting that you, right before giving a NATO speech, I think that was the context of that clip, you didn't know much about. He said, quote, I didn't even know what the hell NATO was too much. You didn't know much about the most significant military alliance in the history of the world. Maybe that should be something you read up on before running for / being president. And admitting that is a strange thing, but we've seen that in his behavior. And also, he's continuing to perpetuate this idea that NATO wasn't paying their bills, funding NATO. But we've gone through how he seems to be mixing up different topics whenever he espouses these things. Really, the big strides we're trying to make are on NATO countries spending on their own national defense. And the security program is a much smaller, not less significant thing that doesn't seem like he's referring to. But there have been strides made through Obama into Trump, into Biden, to increase up to 2% of GDP, individual countries spending on their own national defense, so each country strong. But that is something we've been making progress on before him, and also is not at all the story that he tells of sort of bills not being paid, and they're delinquent, he'll say. Not how it works. Not how it works at all. Especially dangerous when he takes that and uses it as justification, that misunderstanding, to say that we wouldn't follow through on our obligation to Article 5 if a NATO country were invaded. Now, Ron Filipkowski did say about Trump saying he didn't know much about NATO. He said Putin explained it to him. Maybe so. Then you have him once again obsessing over Hannibal Lecter.
Did anyone ever see the lovely movie Silence of the Lambs? Did you see it? Did you ever hear of Hannibal Lecter? He was a lovely man. He would love to have you for dinner. He will take you. You had many people for dinner. Well, we have a lot of people coming in. They always say, oh, that's terrible, that Trump would say. He is rambling about Hannibal Lecter. No, I'm not rambling. We are allowing people from insane asylums and mental institutions.
Yeah, so it's just Trump doing sort of a simple form of word association, going, oh, I use this wild talking point about insane asylums, so Hannibal Lecter. Now, why he insists on always saying lovely and great man, I don't really know. But he gets in he gets in a loop where he says something, the media reports on it, and people go, that was bizarre. And then he goes, the media says that I say this, so now let me say it again. And then the media, they're going to cover it again, they're going to say it again. And he just keeps bringing something up, which to us is not really the significant part of what he's saying. Okay, let's talk about your crazy rhetoric on border-related things, how you both have insane fear-mongering and dehumanization regarding that topic, but when it comes to pragmatic solutions being brought forward, you encourage them to be shot down. So let's have that conversation. No one really cares that much about the Hannibal Lecter thing, other than it being so bizarre how often you feel the need to bring it up. Then he says this.
That's supposed to be a little bit Democrat territory, but we're eating in Nevada, and a waitress came over, beautiful waitress, and I never like talking about physics, because she's beautiful inside. Because you never talk about a person's look, ever. You never mention it. The other day, I got very angry. Some man called Chris Christie fat. And I said, sir, and then he said he was a pig. I said, sir, Chris Christie is not a fat pig. Please remember that. He is not a fat pig. Please take it back. And the guy's looking at me like, really? No, we have to defend people. You can't call people fat. So I said about 9 times, he is not a fat pig.
He said that happened the other day. That happened a long time ago. That was back during the primary. But he just really loves that story as well. And finds himself to be very clever, despite how vile that is. And then you have him saying this.
He has unleashed a horrible thing because, that can happen the other way around, too. But the Supreme Court came out with an incredible decision this week, and I have great respect for the courage that they've shown. Great respect for the courage that they've shown. They have great intellect and great insight. Incredible insight. They got it. They saw what was happening.
So Trump glistening because of the combination of makeup and sweat, melting, spreading all of these different, or I should say espousing just these strange, sometimes incoherent thoughts. That is less significant, all of it, to moments like that. And to the NATO moment, other things, but him talking about what was a truly constitutionally devastating ruling by the Supreme Court in service of him, placing him and other presidents, presumably, but mainly his concern is that this applies to him, above the law in judging their official powers as president. And if you thought the first term, his mishandling of the pandemic, then his attempt to prevent Biden from coming into office, even though he won an election, that political coup attempt, if you thought any of the things Trump did then were bad, just know that a second term is going to be better organized. That's what Project 2025 is all about, actually getting a plan together to hit the ground running with this dystopian version of governance. And Trump putting together and putting around him, surrounding himself with people who will only be yes men, will do whatever he'd like. You're not going to have a Mike Pence who right at the end says, never mind, I can't do that crazy authoritarian thing. And will be fully loyal to him, not our Constitution. And then a Supreme Court saying that he's immune. He's above the law in his official powers. That should frighten America. And I know, and I'm not one of those people saying any concerns about Biden are absolutely crazy. Absolutely not. I hear you. I see it. But also it's a choice. That's what this election's about. Elections are about. Choices, decisions between, in this case, two individuals. And the choice could not be more clear. Someone with their flaws who understands the importance of our Constitution and democracy. And someone who doesn't. And someone who has a really frightening plan for what's ahead. Then just bonus clip, Donald Trump Jr. said this.
And my father would have been the person that sent me there. Hey, we all need a little kick in the ass sometime in our life, okay? Hunter needed it about 50 years ago, but never got it. I'm much cuter, thank you. I like you, baby.
Okay, one more time, just the end part.
I'm much cuter, thank you. I like you, baby.
Nailed it. No comment on that one. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. This late night segment as I'm falling apart watching Trump fall apart. In the comments, you can tell me whatever. And then also, on top of that, if you're wanting to support the show more, you can do so by clicking the join button below.